Hey everybody, it's us again. Welcome to Wrestling with Wrestling. We're going to talk wrestling for the next hour and a half because I know that's just what your day is needing. Two guys on the internet talking about wrestling for 90 minutes. Well, you've come to the right place. Joining me, as always, my fellow wrestling fan and veteran of the industry, the greatest referee in all of professional wrestling, Doc Gregory. How's it going, Doc?
Everything is going really well. I got a show not this weekend, but next weekend, Atlantic Terror Championship Wrestling. They're going to be coming back to the Ranson area. I just wanted to give a nod to anybody who might be in the Harpers Ferry area, Harpers Ferry, West Virginia area. Primal Conflict Wrestling is going to be running a show Saturday night. Matt Hardy and his wife, or his girlfriend, Ruby Sky, they're going to be on the card, and they're also going to have a special appearance by Typhoon, the Shockmaster. So hopefully he can get to the door without falling on his face. But I just want to welcome everybody to Wrestling with Wrestling. We'd like to cover everything on Raw. We like to talk about the network and what's going on in the network right now. Well, that's easy, ladies and gentlemen. It is ECW week. ECW week on the network. And you know what that means. Shaky fucking cameras and just tilted shit. This is ECW for you. Right? We don't do that here.
That's actually probably higher production value than they actually had back in the day in ECW.
I'm still producing it out of my home though,
Yeah, exactly. For that handmade feel that made it so exciting. Yeah, that's true. It is ECW week on the network, and they added some old ECW shows from the early mid '90s. Some things that hadn't been on the network before because technically they're not pay-per-views, although they were booked pretty much as they were pay-per-views that weren't on pay-per-view. They were like big shows at the ECW arena, like the original November to Remember and CyberSlam, and I think there's another one too that they added. I forget which one from 1995. But if you're an old ECW fan, check those out because they're pretty cool. And a shit ton of episodes of the ECW TV show too.
They said 57 episodes right now are up. So always remember, people.
So
ECW. Those were good days, man. Back in the '90s, but I still say ECW really ruined, even put a bigger dent than what Vince McMahon did in wrestling because they hyped everyone as Supermen. People taking like 20 to 30 fucking chair shots or falling through like a whole stack of tables that are stacked to the ceiling, and then continue to keep getting up from stuff like that. If they're not physically injured, it just made everybody feel like like Superman. It actually blew away suspension of disbelief to me because it's like one shot. I'm taught in wrestling, if you get hit once with a chair, whether it's in the back, whether it's in the head, you go down and you stay down. You get hit with their finisher, you go down, you stay down. That's the way we kind of do it in independent wrestling, unless it's like a championship match or something really special. But that's just kind of where the standing rules for old school wrestling.
Yeah, well, an argument could even be made, and I've heard different wrestling fans say this, that it was ECW and in particular Tommy Dreamer and Raven that killed the DDT as a finish because they kicked out of it so many times because they both would use the DDT as their finish, and they had that feud that just lasted forever where they would do like a lot of times WWE does in their main events now where everybody kicks out of everybody else's finish. But up until that point, the DDT was mostly famous as being Jake the Snake's finish, and nobody ever kicked out of it when Jake did it, except maybe The Undertaker. Then you get Tommy and Raven and ECW fucking kicking out of it like crazies, and now it's basically a transition. Now nobody pins anybody with a DDT. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you said, just elevating the level of violence. So now, like, the expectation is if you have a hardcore match or a grudge match and somebody doesn't go through a table, you feel like you've been ripped off, But go ahead.
Oh, no, that was it. I was it. I just wanted to touch base with ECW week. I think we talked about that enough. I think we should move on to what is current, what is happening, and that was Monday Night Raw,
which was emanating on a tape delay from the United Kingdom, from Liverpool, the home of the Beatles. The home of the Beatles. Liverpool.
Now, to do that properly, I always say to do a proper Liverpool accent, you have to pull off every sentence like it's a question.
Yes.
It's like, so it was from Liverpool, was it?
Exactly.
I heard it was a good show. Yeah.
Right. Right.
But yeah, the crowd was rowdy Monday
They
night.
were, and yeah. In fact, I didn't realize it when I was watching the show, but I read later that they actually had to tweak the crowd a little bit in post production because this wasn't a live show. They had time to sort of edit it a little bit before they aired it on USA, and they had to kind of fuck with the crowd a little bit because they were really rowdy, and there were some portions that they did not really like, and made it very clear.
I thought it was weird. I thought maybe they're just being downright rude or just having a shitload of fun because they were all drunk or something. It is foreign lands to us. But it's just that I'm here. I'm watching stuff on TV that I think is pretty good stuff, and it's like the crowd's not even following it. They're chanting for JBL. I'm like, what in the hell is going on over there?
I noticed that.
I thought Canada was weird.
I noticed that because I mean, in terms of the in-ring stuff, I thought most of it was pretty good this week. But yeah, there were what really fucked me up, and maybe this is a function of them maybe going in post-production and trying to sweeten the crowd response. But there were a couple matches where it seemed like they were really into it, and then like the next second they were chanting for something else. Like they just totally lost interest. Like at first they were like, oh, they're really into the spots, and then it's like they're chanting, they're doing the Olay thing or chanting for JBL. I was like, Jesus, you guys are kind of schizophrenic tonight. Well, let's get into the show. It is sort of live from Liverpool during their annual European tour, and the show opens with John Cena. John Cena comes out to a chorus of very enthusiastic boos from the crowd.
John Cena sucks.
Yes.
John Cena sucks, and I love that, because it takes me back to when they did that with Kurt Angle. I love that the fans are really picking up on that and doing the John Cena sucks songs with this song.
And Cena even mentioned that. He mentioned that in his promo. He said it's like the UK remix of his theme. So Cena comes out and he basically recaps the main event program from the last few weeks. Survivor Series we're building to Survivor Series and Team Cena versus Team Authority in a traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination match. And right now, Team Authority is looking very strong, and right now, Team Cena is officially. When Cena's cutting the promo, it's officially Cena, Dolph Ziggler, and Jack Swagger. But we'll see how long that lasts. That changes a bit by the end of the show. Cena says it's been difficult to recruit a team because the Authority just has been threatening and punishing everybody who seems like they're going to join Team Cena. And he mentions that he has a match tonight in the main event with Ryback, and he says maybe before they have their match, Ryback and he can talk a little business. So Ryback comes out to a really nice babyface pop from the crowd. They were really happy to see Ryback, or at least it sounded like they were. And Ryback gets one line out on the microphone. He says, "The big guy's back," and that's it. Triple H, Stephanie, Seth, Kane, Noble, and Mercury, they all come walking out, along with the newest member of the Team Authority Survivor Series team, Mark Henry. He is now officially on the Team Authority Survivor Series team. So they all walk down to the ring, and Triple H starts talking, and he says that the reason why they're intimidating everybody and punishing people who take Cena's side is because everything's on the line. Because if the Authority loses the Survivor Series match, they're no longer in control. And Triple H makes fun of John Cena's team. He says that Dolph Ziggler won't even make it to Survivor Series. And Cena says, yeah, well, you said the same thing about Daniel Bryan, and he still beat your ass at WrestleMania. Which was nice, which I thought was awesome. But, of course, Triple H completely no-sells it. And, says, yeah, well, where is he now? He's at home doing nothing. Like, Triple H, that's the problem with Triple H as a heel in this role, is that he no-sells everything. Like, instead of just going, oh, or, like, changing the subject, like, he has to have the last word, which is really frustrating. So now they turn to Ryback, and Stephanie tells Ryback that if he joins their team, that he'll get more main events and more opportunities. And Cena calls them wankers, and says that they'll only push Ryback if it'll protect them, because they act in their own interest, not in the interest of the fans or the wrestlers. And he says he'll go down, if he goes down, he'll go down like a man, not like a sellout. And if Ryback wants to get over because the fans want him, then he should join Team Cena, and if he wants to be a sellout, then he should join Team Authority. And Ryback says, well, he's not afraid of the Authority, but then again, John Cena doesn't sign his checks, so he drops Cena with a spine buster and walks away. So Triple H and Stephanie seem pretty pleased about that. Man, this seemed like this took a long time. This opening segment, before they got to the first match, just seemed like it took forever. What did you think?
Yeah, it just droned on and on. By Monday night, I was out. I was completely asleep by the time this segment ended. I actually went and watched the whole 3 hours of Raw yesterday. Sat down and watched it. I almost fell asleep again. I mean, I'll get more into that. I mean, I came off of Raw not being all that excited about it. I mean, Ryback, obviously, he's getting the big push, and, there's that little bit of confusion because he comes out there and he does kind of pull a heel move on their biggest babyface, although that's completely irrelevant in a country like England.
Right.
Because when John Cena comes out, John Cena sucks. And that's one of the things in post-production, that should have got a big pop, and it didn't. When he slammed him, it got an actual big boo, and I thought, that considering the way they were acting, that doesn't make sense. That just didn't. I think they just fed that noise in. I mean, I have tons of sound effects, and when I do my videos, I could easily add. I know, because we do shows sometimes in front of small houses where they're not that rowdy, but I could easily add those sound effects to make it sound like they're making a shit ton of noise. It's daddy. And if I can do it, the best production values in television, the WWE could do it too.
Yeah, totally. I agree. You would think that, Ryback would get a huge babyface pop from dropping Cena, and if they're going to sweeten the crowd noise, they should at least try to make it consistent. I think if they did indeed fuck with the crowd noise as much as I read that they did, it only made it worse. It just made it confusing. It made it sound like they hate something one minute and then they love it the next. It's like, Jesus, you guys.
And British are finicky people.
They are, man. They're just trying. You know what? They're just trying to get themselves over. The crowd.
Yeah. You know how you do that? You jump into the ring.
Yeah.
And get your ass handed by a referee.
Exactly. A referee fucking double leg takedown, and dude, that referee kicked your ass. Well, let's go to the first match, because the first match is between two members of the Survivor Series team, Jack Swagger, who was announced by Cena as being on Team Cena, taking on the captain of Team Authority, the Money in the Bank winner, Seth Rollins. And Seth, as usual these days, has Jamie Noble and Joey Mercury at ringside with him.
Or as they're called these days, J&J Security.
Yes, his security detail. The Stooges.
Mm-hmm.
And the live crowd, assuming that they were really making these noises and it wasn't just something added in post, seemed really into Jack Swagger. They seemed really happy to see him. And, Swagger is one of those guys who is capable of having a good match with just about anybody and making himself and the other guy look good. And, I mean, they've kind of forgotten about Swagger since the Rusev program. I don't know what the deal was, if he was hurt or if they just kept him off TV because they couldn't think of what to do with him. But he's one of those guys in a totally different style, but sort of like Dolph Ziggler, where you can just give him match time and he'll get over just from that. Because, I mean, he's a good enough worker, I think. And I mean, since he's not that great of a talker, it's probably better for him anyway. But
yeah, and they don't even really give Dutch much an opportunity to talk anymore.
No.
But I enjoyed this match, and the reason I think Jack gets over, Jack gets over better in other countries because they respect the ability to wrestle more than the entertainment aspect of it. And when Jack Swagger walks out there, they know they're getting a real deal. It'd be just as nice as seeing Kurt Angle walk out there. You know he's going to go out there and perform and give you a top-notch match, and that's what Jack Swagger does, and that's why I've always liked him.
Yeah, I agreed completely. And even though Swagger being on Team Cena turns out to be a fake out, because at the end of this match, which I agree, like you, I really like this match. The end of the match comes when Noble and Mercury distract Swagger, and which allows Rollins to run him headfirst into the ring post, and then curb stomp him and pin him. And then after the match, he curb stomps him again, and the doctors come in to check on him, and essentially they wrote Jack Swagger out of the Team Cena team. So Swagger's not actually going to be on Team Cena after all. That was just a fake out. All you Jack Swagger fans who thought, oh, wow, awesome, they're going to put Jack Swagger in the main event of Survivor Series. Ha ha. No, they're not.
But at this point, I'd like to point out that this match ended with some outside interference. That's how we got our conclusion. We also had some extracurricular activity after the bell because he gave him 2 curb stomps. But I wanted to point out that particular point in this first matchup.
Yes, indeed.
It's going to get worse, people.
Yeah, you think?
For me, yeah. This is why I think there was an overkill of shit this week.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a shame that the direction they ended up going with Team Cena by the end of this show, like it kind of makes sense, sort of. But I mean, it would have been really interesting if they had Cena populate his team with wrestlers who had been held back, either in real life or in part of the storyline. If he had Ziggler and Swagger and
Zack Ryder.
I mean, that would have been. They would be like, "You're crazy. We're not going to put Zack Ryder in a pay-per-view main event." I mean, or Cesaro. You know what I mean? Like, even though Cesaro is a heel, they could have had a backstage scene, because that's you mentioned the interference finishes, which we'll see more of. I thought they had so many of those fucking backstage segments, like long ass like soap opera scenes between Triple H and Stephanie and Kane and Ryback, and it's like, Jesus Christ, this is just there's a lot of these tonight. They could have had one of those between Cena and Cesaro, where Cena says, "Look, we don't always get along, but I know that the Authority has held you back," and blah blah blah. And you know what I mean? Then that would have been a more interesting story if Cena gathers together all of the mid-carders that have been held down by the Authority and said, "Let's rise up and take him out." That would have been pretty cool, but that's not what they're doing. Anyway, so speaking of backstage segments, this one wasn't so bad. It was a backstage promo from Dean Ambrose. He says that the Authority couldn't take him out, and Bray Wyatt isn't going to be able to take him out either, and when he goes down, he's going to self-destruct gloriously. It was a good promo, and I really liked Dean, but I think this was Dean's only appearance on the show, which was too bad. He didn't actually have a match on Raw this week.
But still, I think they're playing that feud smart by keeping them away from each other.
Oh, I agree. And Bray has a promo later on in the show, which I also thought was really good. I like keeping them away from each other. It's a hell of a lot better than having them wrestle like 5 times.
Well, sure. What's Dean going to do if they're in the same building? What do you think Dean or Bray's going to do if they're in the same building?
Right. Yeah.
What they normally do, they attack.
Right. I do wish that they would focus more on the promos than the fucking lights out, stuff that they did last week, where like the lights go out and then the lights come back on and there's Bray Wyatt, and then the lights go off and the lights come back on and he's gone. Like, some of that kind of gets on my nerves. But both guys can cut a promo like nobody. So next in the ring was Alicia Fox versus Paige. And I wrote in my notes, I said, since Paige is sort of the hometown girl here, she's not from Liverpool, but she's from England, I said, does that mean that she's losing, thanks to ass-backward WWE logic? But no, actually, Paige wins this match. Alicia dominates for most of it. She gets most of the offense in. She even busts out a Northern Lights suplex, does Alicia Fox, for a near fall. But Paige comes back and hits her finish, the Rampage, that sort of fisherman's implant DDT thing she does, and she gets the pin, which was nice to see. Old school conventional wisdom is if you're in a guy's hometown, you'd want to put him over because it'll make the crowd happy. But it seems like a lot of times WWE does the exact opposite, and they'll have the whole.
They want to teach you humility. That's what they do. That's what they like to do, is teach you humility and show you that we're the ones in control. We're the puppet masters. You're the puppet.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But Paige won, and I thought it was nice because it was nice to see Paige in just a match. You know, I mean, they had, like, her and Alicia Fox have had sort of a thing going on the last couple of weeks where first they were friends and then they were enemies and blah blah blah. But it was, you know, there weren't any run-ins, there wasn't any, like, you know, soap opera shit before or after. It was just two girls who can wrestle, having a short match, but not a bad match, and it was just a match. And it was like, oh, good, Paige had a match and she won. You know, it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. I like that.
Yeah, I'd like to see. I like this Divas match this week. Like you said, they cut out the bullshit. They let two women go in there and they wrestled. I think Alicia Fox held her own. She's coming a long way and pretty quickly. I thought they had a nice, tight, solid match. And the only grief I had with it was I'd like to see it go a little bit longer. I mean,
yeah.
but it was a good match. And to me, like, one of the most logical matches of the night, the one I probably enjoyed the most when reflecting on my evening.
Yeah, I agree. I think for what it was terrific, and they didn't you know, make it more complicated than it needed to be, which is something that they do way too often. So speaking of those endless backstage segments, here was one. And the only reason I mentioned them in my recap this week is because there were just so damn many of them. Usually I skip over them if there's nothing important, which there usually isn't. But this was one where Stephanie's been trying to recruit Rusev onto Team Authority for the last couple weeks, and she finds Rusev and Lana backstage, and she says, "Hey, you guys want to join Team Authority?" And Lana says, "Well, we'll think about it." And Stephanie totally loses her cool, calls Lana a stuck-up Russian twit. And then says, "You should join Team Authority because you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours." So, you know.
Yeah, I did not like Stephanie's reaction here, because you're pushing Rusev and them as powerhouse people that, and what you did was let Stephanie McMahon, and although she is Vince's daughter and she basically holds power there, I think she pulled the boss card that I did not like, because it took away a little heat from Lana and Rusev of what they do.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Rusev or Lana should be. You know, Lana should be like, "Hey, I take my orders from Vladimir Putin."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, she should not be impressed by Stephanie at all.
Especially when she insulted Putin. To me, she insulted Putin, and to me that had been drawing the line.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, like I mentioned when I was talking about the opening promo where Triple H no-sells the Daniel Bryan line. I mean, Stephanie does that too. I mean, she got thrown into that swimming pool a couple months ago before SummerSlam, or when Vicky Guerrero pushed her in over the summer, and that was like the last time Stephanie showed any vulnerability or at all. It's like it's okay to have these heel boss characters and to have them be dominant and to have them, you know, win most of the time, but they have to lose eventually. I mean, the thing with Stephanie and Triple H that makes them so kind of boring after a while is they never lose.
Mm-hmm. And they never. When you reflect back on Vince McMahon and Steve Austin, you know, Vince was like that boss character, that evil boss, and he was always trying to paint Steve Austin into a corner. But Steve Austin would always come back fighting and beat Vince's ass time and time and time again, beat his ass, and basically had the upper hand the whole time.
Yeah, and I know it's a little different because Triple H was an active wrestler and was a world champion and was pushed as, like, you know, a major badass during his career, but I mean, they act like he's still Triple H from 2000 instead of Triple H from 2014. I mean, somebody at some point, especially one of these young guys like Reigns or Ambrose or somebody, has to get up in Triple H's face and go, you know, "Hey, you're not the game anymore. You know, we're not afraid of you, and if you fuck with me, I'm going to put you on your ass." And then, you know, eventually something like that has to happen. I mean,
yeah, because I could put you on your ass. That's going to make all the news on the internet. It's going to be a huge buzz that I did that, and I'm going to be top dollar in another promotion. It's that easy.
Yeah, exactly.
And a top story, because I basically left here like when Alberto Del Rio. Alberto Del Rio, you know, hit that guy backstage, and just the internet went, you know, flared up because they wanting to know what the whole deal was. It was huge stories, and I'm sure he's going to be wrestling again down in Mexico, and he's going to be a huge name. He's going to be a huge draw, and not just because of that, just because that story, even though he wasn't on TV or anything, held its own ground in storylines. And then when he came back, bam, he was on fire.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he's going to wrestle in the States too. He said he's going to work for Lucha Underground next year. That could. I mean, I don't know if Lucha Underground is going to turn into something or not, but that'd be, that could be a pretty big deal, having a former main event WWE guy. Well, anyway, speaking of Rusev and Lana, they come out for a celebration of Rusev's U.S. title victory, and Lana says that Rusev holding the U.S. title is a reminder of Russian superiority over the United States. And she also, because they're in England, she reminds the crowd that if it wasn't for Russia entering World War II on the side of the Allies, everyone in England would be speaking German, which was a pretty good line, I thought. It's easy, but it's good. It works, Then they have some Russian guy in the ring with him who reads a proclamation from Vladimir Putin in English. Congratulating Rusev and saying that he's like a great Russian whatever, and they're playing the Russian national anthem when out comes Sheamus. Such disrespect.
It was.
Russian people.
Absolutely. How many times are they going to do this to Rusev? He's just celebrating, and it's a national anthem, for Christ's sake. That's disrespectful. We would say it's disrespectful if you did that to us because we're ignorant Americans.
Right.
But we'll be the first ones to do it to you.
Exactly. You know what? That's true, though. I mean, as much as we make fun of other people for acting that way, I mean, I guarantee you there are Americans who would be legitimately offended and pissed off if on a wrestling show, a predetermined wrestling show, they had somebody interrupt the national anthem like that. Even though it was all part of the show, people would still be like, they shouldn't be disrespecting a national anthem like that.
Sergeant Slaughter had to be walked to his car when he turned against the United States.
Oh my God! Yes.
The security on him had to be high because he got death threats. People were threatening him because of the fact that he turned his back after all these years. He served in the military. He served in our military. He was on G.I. Joe, for Christ's sake.
Oh my God! I know. And I know it's like well, and when you think about it now, it's like, man, all he did was turn heel. I mean, yeah, he was talking shit about the United States and saying how Saddam Hussein was a great guy, but it was on a wrestling show.
He did get a mean pair of boots from Saddam Hussein. Those were nice. As a present, they were great.
I love that. That whole thing was so cheap. I mean, it was like Saddam Hussein sends him wrestling boots. Whoever came up with that is a fucking genius. I mean, like, it's so stupid. Like, do you really think Saddam Hussein is sending Sergeant Slaughter wrestling boots? But it was so great. Oh, man. Well, Sheamus and Rusev go right into their match. They have a rematch for the U.S. title. So if you signed up for the WWE Network last week to get that Sheamus versus Rusev title match, here it is again on Raw for free.
Yeah, there's not much difference in what they do in the ring.
No. Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much the exact same match. And this is one of those matches, like we were talking earlier about the weird crowd noise, where sometimes it seems like the crowd is really into this match, and then it's like they completely fuck off and they're chanting, like there's one point where they're chanting ECW, they're doing the ole 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 thing like they usually do for Sami Zayn for no reason.
Well, Sami was on the tour. He was over there.
Yeah, I saw him. He had a match on Main Event this week.
I say when that guy goes out there and wrestles, it's just infectious. That song, it's infectious.
Yeah. Good. I mean, I hope they do it when he gets called up to Raw full time. They fucking do it all night because he's great. Yeah. Anyway, but I thought this was a decent match between Sheamus and Rusev. The finish was a little because it ended up. Well, the thing about the finish, I think the referee might have botched the finish a little bit, or somebody botched the finish because the referee had to look away so that he didn't see the Stooges fuck with Sheamus because it wasn't supposed to be a DQ, it was supposed to be a count out. So Rusev distracted the referee so he would turn away, and then when he turned back, he just picked up the count where he left off instead of starting the count over. But the gist of it is the Stooges Mercury and Jamie Noble come down to ringside to help out Rusev, and they distract Sheamus while he's outside, and Rusev beats the count and wins by countout.
So that's our third match. See, the women did all right, but I think that's our third match, and it ended in a countout with some outside interference.
Yes, that's indeed, and actually outside interference by the same guys.
Mm-hmm. But I'm looking at this picture, and I recall this, but when I watched this match, that this referee, I don't recognize him. It looks like he's a little bit of a Asian type. I'm not sure. There's a picture of him on the website that I'm seeing, but I do not recognize this referee as being a normal ref in the WWE. So, who knows?
Yeah, I think he's new. I think he might have reffed their match last week too.
Maybe.
But
it takes a while for me to catch on. Yeah, it takes a while for me to catch on when referees come and go. You know,
yeah.
Like when little, it took me just to like the beginning of this year to like. Is he still around? I don't know.
I don't know. Shit, sometimes I don't even pay attention to who the ref is. I mean, if I'm thinking about it.
How dare you, sir?
If I'm thinking about it, like I can pick him out. I mean, I know most of them by name, but this guy, I don't know if he's new or if I just haven't noticed him. But I can't think of his name.
I'm just gonna call him Chunky Asian Guy.
Chunky Asian Guy.
Chunky Asian Guy.
Chunky Asian Guy. Nice. It does fit that song perfectly. So anyway, after this, backstage, again, another backstage segment, Lana and Rusev officially join Team Authority, and Lana says Vladimir Putin will be pleased. Stephanie says she doesn't give a damn about Vladimir Putin. And again, Lana and Rusev just let her get away with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not someone, I don't like to see men getting violent against women or men like being violently intimidating against women, but Lana seems like she would be the type of woman who either could take care of herself or would at least think she could take care of herself. And I mean, what's wrong with Lana getting in Steph's face when she says something like that?
Yeah, I'd have taken those nice, smooth, thick, voluptuous thighs of hers, and with those stiletto heels on, and kicked Steph right in the face.
I mean, either that or just don't have Steph do that at all. Like, it just makes Rusev and Lana look weak if, they're all about impressing Vladimir Putin, and then Stephanie says, yeah, you know what, fuck Vladimir Putin, fuck him, and they're just like,
and you still do it, and you still do what they say anyways. Now,
yeah.
how's Putin gonna look at you?
Right.
They disgrace me, and you still join their team. We no longer support you.
I am president of Russia. She runs wrestling company. Who are you going to go with? Come on.
I will come in and invade the WWE and take it over for my own.
Yes.
I'm sending my troops in right now.
That's what, you know what? Team Authority loses at Survivor Series. Vladimir Putin comes in and takes over.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect. Next up, Los Matadores versus the tag team of The Miz and Damien Sandow, or Damien Mizdow. And because Los Matadores are accompanied by El Torito, Miz and Sandow are accompanied by Hornswoggle, who is dressed like Miz and Sandow. He's like a mini Miz. So there's that. The best part of this match, this wasn't a bad match, but the best part of it to me was the Miz Sandow stuff, which continues to just completely work for me. They had and Miz is really using it to work some really nice spots as a heel, which I really love. Like, the crowd loves Sandow. They were chanting for Sandow the whole match.
Mm-hmm.
And there were two spots that Miz did that I loved. The first one was when he sort of asked the crowd if they wanted him to tag Sandow. And they were all like, yes! And Miz immediately just hit a chinlock.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't tag him. I thought that was awesome. And then the other one was when he did tag Sandow in, and then he tagged him right back out. Like, he didn't even let him do anything. I think Sandow got to hit the ropes, and then Miz immediately tagged himself back in. So the crowd didn't get to see Sandow in the ring at all. I thought it was really, really good. And then the finish came when Miz was doing a suplex on one of the Matadors. I don't even know which one. And he did the he fell on top and Sandow grabbed the Matador's foot like Bobby Heenan did to the Ultimate Warrior on WrestleMania 5 and held him down so that they got the pin. So Miz and Sandow win with a little cheating uh, from Damian Sandow. And I think and Torito and Hornswoggle got into it at some point too.
Don't they always? You can't control those midgets.
Yeah, those midgets.
It was Diego that got the
Diego.
Yeah, he's the one that got pinned. But I'd like to point out this also again was not a clean finish. It was a dirty finish by, and I'll allow this one because it was at least his tag team partner. But yeah, great little psychological work there, psychology between Miz and Sandow. There was a brief second when Miz tagged himself back in. There was that brief second where Damian's like, "What the?" But then just went outside the ring. He just saw that in his eye. That action, like, I can't believe you just did that, but he dismissed it just as quickly. And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah,
it shows that he's starting to think a little.
And I hope they let it drag out a little longer. I mean, I clearly they're moving toward them breaking up and Sandow doing like a babyface turn on Miz. But I hope that they drag it out a little bit longer because the way they've got it going now is so good. The slow burn where, you know, it seems like is Miz just that stupid that he doesn't realize it? Or is he just trying to turn it to his advantage, you know, or what? And Sandow's doing those little things where it's like, is the Miz starting to get on his nerves a little? You can't really tell, you know, or it's just kind of just barely starting.
Yeah, you know how you could really tweak this feud or this storyline is for WWE to quickly put Damian Sandow in a movie. One of their movies. They put Hornswoggle in a movie for Christ's sake. They could put Damian Sandow and at least he's good behind the mic. I think he would be able to act. I think he'd at least be able to act better than Triple H.
Oh God.
But yeah, then all of a sudden here's that movie. Damian Sandow did it, not the Miz. His star is rising just as much. He's just as much a star as the Miz. So that puts them on equal footing. That's where the heat really starts.
That's the perfect way to do it. And make sure to have the announcers pimp Sandow's movie just a little bit more than they pimped Miz's. Mm-hmm. And Miz would notice that and take offense to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's. I see. Are they? I mean, I guess they would have to find a movie for Sandow to be in, but like, how fucking hard could that be?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Marine 4 or 5.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that would be even better.
Yeah, that would be because he follows Miz in the Marine. Yeah,
that would be even better.
My Marine was better than your Marine.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great. That would be great. That's too good. There's no way they're gonna do that. That's too good. Next on Raw was another match: Dolph Ziggler versus Mark Henry. A singles match between two guys who are going to be on opposite sides of the Survivor Series main event. And I wrote in my notes here because Dolph is so great as the never say die babyface, the guy who takes a beating and keeps getting back up. And who would have thought a couple years ago when he was playing like the cocky asshole heel that he would be so good at also being the babyface who takes a beating and keeps getting up. He's just so good in this role, and that's basically this match where he keeps throwing everything he has at Henry, and Henry just throws him off and beats him down, and he keeps coming back. Eventually, it ends in a DQ because Mark Henry hits Dolph with a chair. Dolph throws him over the barricade, and Henry kind of just says, "Fuck this," and picks up a chair and throws it at Dolph. Gets DQ'd. And he's getting ready to give Dolph the world's strongest slam in the ring on the steps when, of course, out comes the Big Show. And he runs Henry off, and he announces that he's joining Team Cena. So if Mark wants to run away now, he'll just see him at Survivor Series. I kind of saw this one coming after they announced that Mark Henry was going to be on Team Authority, but I don't mind it. I mean, it makes sense, you know, and it gives Big Show something to do. So.
Yeah, and they did a top 5 video I watched today of the Dream Survivor Series team, and they listed like the top 5 guys to make that Dream Survivor Series team, and Big Show is on that because of his ability to have survived the past Survivor Series, his ability to eliminate people. So he made that Dream team. So I mean, I think it's a good choice, especially that he's in this feud with Mark Henry. But this was a match where in a DQ, it wasn't a clean finish. So we're on like a 3 out of 4 matches where, or something like that, where just bullshit happened. It wasn't clean finish.
Yeah.
And, I think this is where I'm starting to feel there's a bit of an overkill in this whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. And well, the thing about it is, I know they have people backstage who are road agents, producers, as they call them now, who can come up with fucking match finishes like 1,000 different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've got guys working backstage. Like, I mean, Pat Patterson is the classic guy, but they've also got fucking, Fit Finley and Dean Malenko and Mercury and Noble and Arn Anderson. All these guys. I think Mike Rotundo is an agent for him now. I think
these guys are strong wrestlers. They're not good. They're not good thinkers or good. They're not strong like charisma guys. They're probably creative guys. But when it comes to wrestling ability, you're just listed off a shitload of guys that they should be able to. Dean Malenko, he's the man of
1,000 holes.
1,000 holes. Don't tell me that's bullshit.
Yeah, and it's like between all of those guys, they couldn't come up with more creative finishes for these matches. And fuck it, let's just do a run-in, or fuck it, let's just have him hit him with a chair.
Now let me verify this. Now Dolph Ziggler threw Mark Henry over the barricade, and at this point, Mark Henry picked up a chair and hit Dolph Ziggler with it and got the DQ. Correct?
Right.
And this was outside the ring, actually outside the barricade.
Yeah.
So you tell me why when Rusev and Sheamus got outside the ring and he did the throw over slam like what Razor used to do and threw him onto the table, you tell me why that wasn't a disqualification.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, they have this silly exception to the rule where, like, if the wrestler uses his environment, it's not a DQ, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, if you're going to disqualify somebody for whacking somebody with a chair, how are you not going to disqualify them for intentionally throwing somebody into a table?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a little, I don't know. But then they couldn't. But see, then they would, if they wanted to do those spots where guys go through the announce table, they would either have to have all those matches end in DQs, or they would have to make all those matches no DQ matches, or do a ref bump. You know what I mean? Like, it would make things a lot more complicated if they established that was an automatic DQ, I guess. Anyway, they did another backstage segment where Sheamus joined Team Cena. So now Team Cena is Cena, Dolph, Sheamus, and Big Show. I was wondering if they would hold off Sheamus joining for next week, but no, they had Sheamus join right away. And I guess they're going to do the Ryback thing as like the little bit of drama, who's going to be the last team member. Next was AJ Lee versus Brie Bella. AJ is defending her Divas title against Nikki Bella at Survivor Series, and Brie is still doing the personal assistant thing for Nikki. Actually, they had a thing on the WWE Network on the pre-show where Brie was like Nikki's butler. She had like a tuxedo and white gloves and everything. So Brie has to fight AJ, and the crowd chants for CM Punk because AJ's there, and because there are assholes in England as well as in the United States. Brie takes it to AJ, but Nikki's constantly yelling at her to go at her harder, to go at her more, to beat her up, to work her over, to wear her out for their Survivor Series match. But it doesn't work out. AJ wins the match with the Black Widow by submission, and then after the match, Nikki runs in and knocks Brie down, and then drops AJ with her finish, the rack attack, the torture rack sit-out thing that she does. Mm-hmm. So there you go. AJ wins by submission. Nikki attacks after the match. Yep,
which did not actually surprise me one bit, because that's what the running theme was tonight, was some shady wins, some aftermath events, and again here we see it with Nikki getting in and
yeah.
Not only pushing Brie around, but at least landing her finisher on AJ, which makes it look like she's capable. And now I'm telling you straight up, if Nikki Bella wins this championship from AJ, I'm killing CM Punk. I'm killing him softly with my song.
Yeah, really. I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm really afraid the whole Bella thing is just so dead, and I would hate for it to kill AJ too. You know what I mean? Because AJ has...
Bad enough she's already in the mix.
Yeah, the Bella thing just doesn't have any life left in it at all. I don't think anybody gives a shit about it. And it's like now AJ's going to have to wrestle one of them for the title at a pay-per-view, and who gives a shit? I mean, um, also, I should note before we talk about the next match that throughout the show they've had these backstage segments where different members of Team Authority have shown up in Ryback's dressing room to insult and fuck with him
Mm-hmm.
for no reason other than to foreshadow him eventually turning and joining Team Cena. And it's like, could they underline this any harder? Like, all the members of Team Authority have come up to Ryback at one point or another during this show and interrupted his preparation to either tell him what to do or to insult him or get in his face and piss him off. It's like, Jesus Christ, just take it easy. You just have him turn now. You know, if you're going to make it this obvious that he's going to turn.
Yeah, Mark, it's like Kane comes out and says, "You gotta listen to me." So that's like, you don't need to listen to Kane. The only guy you need to do is listen to me. Mark Henry comes out and he's like, "Yo, you remember when I kicked your ass last year?"
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's like, Jesus, can't we wait till the end of the show before he turns on you guys? Come on. Next match was Tyson Kidd versus Adam Rose. Adam Rose is currently feuding with the Bunny from his entourage. The Bunny has interfered in matches over the last couple weeks and cost Adam Rose victories. Not meaning to. The Bunny just gets carried away, and he ends up fucking things up for Adam Rose. And Adam Rose, breaks bad on him and puts him down, and then goes back and parties with the rest of his people. So, and that's pretty much what happens here. He has a match with Tyson Kidd. The match is interrupted by Eric Rowan, who comes down to ringside, sort of paces around the ring, looks around, lifts up his mask, says, "She's not here," and then walks away. And the announcers have no idea who he's talking about or what he's doing, and they don't really pay attention to the match anyway. Actually, at one point, Michael Cole says, after Eric Rowan walks away, Michael Cole says, "I don't even know what's been happening in the match." And I said in my notes here, well, so that makes this just like every other match on Raw.
Mm-hmm.
Because
they are constantly reminding each other that we need to be talking about this match.
Yeah.
But they constantly fall right back into talking about bullshit.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I watched an episode of Botchamania earlier today. I think it was the most recent one, and one of the spots was from a couple weeks ago when Cameron did the leg drop on Naomi and tried to pin her, but she was laying the wrong way, like she was laying on her stomach instead of on her shoulders, and then she had to roll her over to get the pin. And instead of ignoring it and going on and talking about the rest of the match, the announcers spend the rest of the match talking about that botched spot. It's like, okay, so she made a stupid mistake in the match. You're not supposed to make her look like an idiot. Aren't you supposed to try and get these people over? I mean, just you move on from it. You talk about what's going on now. It's like whenever somebody makes a mistake, instead of covering for them, the announcers are all like, "God, look what he did! What an idiot! Can you believe he did that?" And they talk about that for like 5 fucking minutes. Makes no sense at all.
My favorite one was when it was a basic Cena move where he throws you into the corner hard, he bounces off the ropes, and you stagger out, and he
oh yeah.
And I think it was him and Randy Orton, and he threw Randy into the corner, but Randy didn't come back out, and John Cena still went through the fucking motions, almost fell on his face.
Yes.
And they gave that ugly ass knee in the corner.
Yeah, I saw that. Cena was going for a bulldog. He was going to bulldog him out of the corner, but Orton didn't come out of the corner.
Yeah, and of course I love where Cena never shuts up, and you can hear him like, "Cover me, cover me, cover me, cover me, cover me."
Yeah.
You hear him talking so clearly.
Yeah. And you hear those a lot. I mean, I know that they have a lot more microphones around now than they used to, but man, I mean, almost every show, if you listen close enough, you can hear guys calling spots. I mean, you would think they would watch that a little bit.
And it's easy to spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most time I see them talking to each other. I don't know what they're saying, but I see them. I imagine they're saying what I'm about to see.
Right. Well, I mean, sometimes like if you're a fan and you know what the score is, I mean, sometimes a little bit of it is okay. Like if a guy puts a guy in a chin lock and then he kind of puts his head down, you figure that he's calling the next spot. That's okay. But I mean, mean, the guy's like laying in the middle of the mat, and the other guy is like across the ring, and he's yelling what the next spot is. That's a little obvious. He's like, elbow drop me.
Yeah.
Okay, we heard you. So anyway, the bunny thing happens again in this Tyson Kidd versus Adam Rose match. The bunny distracts Adam Rose. Tyson Kidd rolls him up, puts him in the sharpshooter, taps him out. Tyson Kidd is on a winning streak, by the way. He won last week on SmackDown. He won this week on Raw. He won on Main Event after Raw this week. And I posted on our Facebook page, I said, this is no way to push Tyson Kidd. Mm-hmm. If you want to get him over, put him on a losing streak. That's how you push talent.
My thing is that although he was in this match, Natty, of course, wasn't down at ringside with him.
Yeah.
But the stupid drama was still in this matchup around Tyson Kidd because you had Adam Rose and that rascally Webbit.
Yes. Well, and speaking of the announcers talking about anything other than the match, even though Natty wasn't there, they still spent most of the match either talking about Eric Rowan or Adam Rose and the Bunny, or Tyson Kidd and Natty, and she wasn't even there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, can you call the match a little bit, please?
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen more out of this match. It was a good match. I think it was just had that ending that made that overshadowed the whole fucking thing. I thought it was so stupid. It was cool when the Bunny did a couple things when it first started. He was pulling some moves and everything, but now it's just retarded. Now it's completely retarded.
Yeah.
But you got two accomplished guys in there that know each other quite well from their NXT days, and they could have given us quite the performance. And instead, you painted over with a cover of bullshit.
Yeah, and the Adam Rose Bunny thing. I mean, unless somebody important turns out to be in the bunny costume, like, I don't see where that's going, unless the end game is to just turn Adam Rose completely heel and just have him beat the shit out of the Bunny in the blow-off match. I mean, I don't know.
He is growing out more facial hair these days.
Yeah.
He is looking darker now. So a scene that I would love to see, because it seems like he turns against the Bunny, but he's still got his Party Express on his side.
Yeah.
So the Bunny wants to emulate what Adam Rose does. So the Bunny gets up on the second rope and he goes to do his free-falling thing, and the crowd's there. The Party Express is there, but as soon as he starts to fall, they walk away and let him hit the ground. That would basically show that the whole Party Express and Adam Rose has abandoned the Bunny.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. That'll be pretty cool. That's a hell of a bump for the Bunny to take.
Yeah, but we've seen worse. I mean, if you tell me I only got to do that bump once, I would do that bump.
Yeah, and that's true. It's not like you're gonna have to do it every fucking week, unless the Bunny's stupid. He's gonna do it again. Well, next was Bray Wyatt cutting a promo. We saw Dean cut a promo earlier. Bray Wyatt cuts a backstage pre-recorded promo on Dean Ambrose. Good promo, as usual, from Bray. He had one line that I really loved where Bray Wyatt said, if gods and monsters walked the earth, they would cross oceans to walk away from me. I thought that was a badass line from Bray. And like I said earlier when we were talking about it, I wish that the feud leaned more heavily on promos like this than on the lights out stuff. The lights out stuff kind of bugs me. Mm-hmm. But the promos are great. And I think when they finally get it in the ring, if they get enough time, I think the match could be really good too.
I just want to know who's dragging all that equipment into those abandoned woods and old dirty ass sheds, so that they can produce this kind of stuff. It just seems out of place. But yeah, you're right. The promos, I wouldn't mind promos being like backstage vignettes, so they don't always have to be on location.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I mean, sometimes, like especially with Bray, it's like they get so far deep into the cult leader thing that it's like they forget that he's a wrestler. And it's like, I mean, if you want to say, well, that's just his personality and he's just kind of a weirdo, I mean, I get that. That works for me. But it's like, yeah, but I mean, he's still a wrestler. It's like back in the 90s when they would have wrestlers with other jobs, and it was like they weren't even wrestlers. It was like, if you're a dentist, why are you a wrestler? If you're a baseball player, why are you a wrestler? If you're a trash collector, why are you a wrestler? You know. But then again, sometimes it worked because like they had the Big Boss Man, and he was a security guard and a wrestler, and that actually wound up being pretty good. So. I guess it just depends. Next, we get to the main event of Raw, John Cena versus Ryback, and Ryback has all of the authority and team authority with him at ringside. Rusev is there, and Mark Henry, and Kane, and Rollins. Ryback dominates. The authority watches from ringside. Ryback and Kane have a little snit outside where Kane's like, get back in the ring and, get on him. And Ryback's like, hey, I don't need you telling me that, Some nice reversals from Ryback. There were a couple spots where Cena kept trying to fight back, and Ryback would always turn it into something. He would power slam him or suplex him. There were a couple of spots like that in the match where Ryback would cut off Cena's comeback with a really nice move. Ryback calls for his finish, the shell shock, but Cena escapes and starts one of those comebacks. But Ryback tries. There's one spot where he tries a power bomb, but Cena gets out, and then eventually they go back to that. And Ryback does eventually hit the power bomb later in the match, and I always like when they do stuff like that, where a guy tries a move and he can't hit it, and then a few moves later, like he goes back to it and actually gets him. There's one spot where I'm surprised if this was pre-taped. I'm surprised they didn't try to cover this a little more, where Ryback tried to get a "Feed Me More" chant going, and just got nothing out of it.
Twice.
Yeah. The crowd didn't even, not even a peep. I mean, he was going like for a good while. He was going like "Feed me more" and nothing. That really looked bad for Ryback.
No, I mean, like I said, they appreciate true talent, and I certainly don't look at Ryback as true talent. I just look at him as a muscle man. He goes in there and throws people around.
Yeah, I look at. I mean, honestly, like if I were booking the company, I wouldn't be looking at Ryback as like a future world champion, but I would want to keep him strong. I'd want to make him look good, and I would keep him in the mid card as a guy, as a reliable guy to go out and pop the crowd by throwing people around. I mean, the way they've handled Ryback that confuses me until this most recent time when they brought him back and they're kind of doing the "Feed Me More" thing all over again, is they made him look like such a loser. And it's like, if you got a guy like Ryback, I mean, okay, he's not the greatest wrestler in the world, but why would you want to make him look like such a loser? But looks
like all of a sudden, he gets in. He's been losing match after match after match. He gets injured, and he's on the disabled list or the injury list for a while. He has to get surgery and everything. And unless the doctors that did the surgery were the same people that put the $6 million man together, he's not coming back any stronger than he used to. So it makes him any better. He certainly isn't doing anything new that we haven't seen before, and he's not exciting on the mic. Shit, they're paying for acting lessons for Roman Reigns right now because they know where his weaknesses is. We've been saying it for a long time now. Yeah. But they couldn't afford to do the same thing for Ryback. I mean, if you really want to push him, he's got to be doing something else besides "Feed Me More" and like one-liners and just call me big.
Right. Doc, you there? Well, that's nice. Yeah, Doc's gone. Here he comes. Hey!
And he's back. He's back. Had a little glitch there. That happens.
Yeah, I had a little glitch on this end too. I'm not sure. I think it was a Google thing. I don't think it was your fault.
No, I love the face that it froze you on. It gave me a good giggle. You had your tongue kind of out of your mouth.
Oh, good.
Like you're getting ready to say something.
Good. Well, I from my end, it says we're still on the air, so I think we're okay.
Yep, so live says live here.
Yeah, good. Well, anyway, this is another one of your run-in DQ finishes, Doc. And this is one that even makes less sense than some of these other ones because Ryback was winning the match and was setting Cena up for the meat hook, which is the setup for his finish, and Kane basically says, you know what, fuck this, and runs in anyway and draws the DQ. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that one made no sense. But I wanted to make mention about John Cena here lately. It seems like I've never been a big supporter. I've never been a big fan of John Cena. I give credit where credit's due. He's a fucking workhorse in the WWE, and he absolutely deserves everything he's got. And I give the same credit to Triple H, man. I mean, he's earned everything he's got. definitely got lucky in love, but he absolutely deserved it. John Cena has been giving a lot more, I would say, in 2014 than he has in the 10 years that he's been on top. Which I think is really good. It shows that 10 years of all this has beaten down on him, and he's not quite the top of his game anymore. I think it's a smart move and very generous of John Cena. It shows once again that he is a company man. He really does do what is best for business.
Yeah, and for all the shit he takes from internet fans, I mean, Cena's smart, and I think Cena has a good head for the business. I mean, if you listen to Cena's interview with on Steve Austin's podcast earlier this year, I mean, that guy, he knows his shit. He's not just a guy who goes out and does what he's told. I mean, I think he has a pretty good head on his shoulders for wrestling, and he knows that he's getting to that age where he's going to have to start thinking about, wrestling a reduced schedule, eventually looking at, not being the top guy anymore. And I think he knows that, he's going to have to start getting some of the young guys ready to take over for him. I think actually he knows that better than the company does. Because if you look at the last couple years, with the exception of his program with The Rock, and I guess his little feud that he has going with Brock Lesnar off and on, I mean, his big marquee matches, like with Daniel Bryan and a few years ago with CM Punk, they were all about him putting people over. I mean, so I think Cena, we were talking last year around around WrestleMania time when the Daniel Bryan thing was going on, about if I were John Cena, I would have been just as annoyed at the way they mishandled Daniel Bryan there for a few months as anybody, because John Cena was the guy who tried to fucking make him. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you were just gonna, I mean, if you're just gonna forget about the guy after 2 months, why did you have him fucking beat me? Like, I'm your Hulk Hogan. I'm the top guy. Why did I put him over and make him look like $1 million if you're just gonna forget about him? So Cena, I think, definitely has that capability to look to the other guy and say, I need to start making this guy because I'm not going to be around forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can scale down my performances. I might not get the bank that I used to, but as long as this guy who's absolutely on top, as long as I make him stronger, he'll carry us into the next generation. He's the one that's going to keep us on top, and I'll still be making my benefits, basically, pulling my residuals, because the company in a whole is going to be doing really good.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, he gave Ryback an awful lot in this match.
And Ryback certainly does not deserve it.
No, Ryback I don't think is going to be one of those guys that takes over for Cena, but Cena gave him quite a bit in this match anyway. And after the match, Ryback does not appreciate Kane running in for no reason and fucking up his match, and the beat down is on, so to speak. Seth Rollins runs in, tries to back them off of each other, but Ryback drops him, and then Kane gives Ryback the big foot to the head, and the rest of Team Authority run in, and they start stomping on John Cena, and then Sheamus and Big Show run out, but they run out one at a time because they're idiots. Yeah. It's like, if you're both coming out, why don't you get together and be like, let's run out there. They run out one at a time so that they can both get stomped out.
It's just difficult to play two ring theme music at the same time. It's hard to do that at the same time.
Right.
Individually. I'm not going out there without my theme song.
Exactly. They were talking backstage like, hey, they're beating up Cena. Should we go help him? Yeah, I'll go first. Let him play my music, and then you come out. Okay. What if they start stomping your ass? No. You just wait. Let him play my music. Okay.
Mm-hmm. That'll throw them off.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll have no idea. See, it would have been different if you played like Vince McMahon's music and then come running down, because they would the boss is coming, but it's not him.
Yeah, right. Play Vince's music and then Sheamus comes running out. Like, I gotcha. So anyway, shenanigans. So they take out Sheamus and they take out Big Show, and then Ryback gets back up and he takes out Team Authority. And then he walks away. So the idea is Ryback is no longer on Team Authority, but is he on Team Cena? I guess we'll find out next week. And that's not the end of the show, because you might have noticed that Dolph Ziggler did not run out to help Big Show and Sheamus and John Cena. That's a question that was answered in the final segment of the show, which was another backstage segment where Dolph Ziggler gets tossed into Triple H and Stephanie's office, and Luke Harper is there. He's the guy who has apparently taken out Dolph Ziggler, and he says, "I'm a team player." And then that's the end of the show. So Luke Harper apparently will be the guy to take Ryback's place on Team Authority, I guess. So there you go. That's your episode of Raw. A lot of run-in finishes.
A lot of crap on that. And I mean, we did have a good bit of solid wrestling. I'll give it up there, but I thought that finishes were fucked.
Yeah,
all night long.
And like I said, it's one of those things that I just don't. It boggles my mind. Like, I understand. Look, there are definitely times when you don't want to have a clean finish in a match, especially if you're building to a bigger match where you want to keep both guys in the ring strong. I totally get that. But, I mean, you know, as you pointed out very well as we were talking about this show, Doc, it seemed like they used the exact same kind of finish just all night long. They were just like, oh, fuck it, just have somebody run in. Mm-hmm. It's like, Jesus Christ, can you come up with another way of getting out of this match without making one of the guys look bad? There are, you know, you have fucking Hall of Famers putting your matches together backstage. You can't come up with better finishes than this?
It almost felt like I was watching an old WCW episode when the NWO was on top. You know, every match ended in some type of screw job. Even pay-per-views always ended in some type of screw job.
Yeah, and you know, there are people in some of the wrestling blogs that I look at who have brought up the fact that, you know, if you watch some of the documentary stuff that they're putting up on the network, like the Monday Night War stuff, where they talk about, you know, some of the crazy shit that WCW did that eventually led to the downfall of that company. And then you look at some of the stuff that WWE has been doing lately, and you're like, hey, it's kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not good. Maybe you should watch your own documentaries. I don't know.
Well, I don't think that anybody would be able to buy them out, but, you know, I got bad news for you. They're called shareholders.
Yeah, really.
They can oust your ass real quick.
Yeah, it's... Yeah. Well, let's turn now from the current product, which isn't always as inspiring as we might hope it would be, and let's look back to the good old days, the days when a man could get over as one of the most over heels in the company's history, with basically a gimmick of an Elvis impersonator.
A man that was cool, he was cocky, he was bad. And that moves us to our Legend of the Week. I chose a very interesting man this week for our Wrestling with Wrestling Hall of Fame, because he certainly isn't in the WWE Hall of Fame. And if you watch any of his YouTube rants, you might realize why he's not been invited back to the WWE, because the man is, and I love him dearly, but the man is a bit of an asshole. But I'm talking about none other than Mr. Wayne Ferris, a.k.a. the Honky Tonk Man. Let's break him down, shall we?
Let's do it.
Ferris began wrestling. He began his career in Memphis wrestling in 1978. He wrestled frequently in Birmingham, Alabama as Dynamite Wayne Ferris. Originally a low-card wrestler, he later achieved greater success when he teamed with Larry Latham to form the Blonde Bombers, tag team with Sergeant Danny Davis as their manager. The Blonde Bombers were involved in heated feuds with several babyfaces across the two competing Tennessee promotions, appearing in both Nick Gullis's Nashville-based territory and Jerry Jarrett's Memphis area. Their signature moment was the now famous Tupelo concession stand brawl against Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee. He then had stints in the American Wrestling Association, NWA Mid-Atlantic, World Class Council, NWA Southeastern, and Stampede Wrestling through the early 80s, winning multiple singles championships and tag team championships in each and every one of them. Ferris actually entered the World Wrestling Federation in 1986 under the ring name of what we know him as the Honky Tonk Man. Honky, and I'm going to love saying this, Honky, made his televised WWF debut on September 28, 1986, on an episode of Wrestling Challenge, defeating Terry Gibbs. Originally pushed as a fan favorite, He was, of course, a wrestler with an Elvis impersonating gimmick. Hunky soon cut a series of promos with Jesse the Body Ventura that aired on the WWE syndicated programming, asking fans for a vote of confidence, while these promos actually insulted fans in a manner of like Andy Kaufman before him. The results predictably came back negative, and it was not long before Honky Tonk was actually being the cocky villain and took on Jimmy Mouth of the South Hart as a manager. And of course, he billed Jimmy Hart at the time as the Colonel. And Jimmy Hart, that's the only matches he was called the Colonel was when he actually managed the Honky Tonk Man. This actually was in reference to Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, so that's why I always called him that. Honky's first major feud came against Jake the Snake Roberts, who was in the midst of a fan favorite turn. The feud intensified when Honky attacked Roberts on his talk show set, The Snake Pit. According to Roberts, Honky Tonk was supposed to hit him with a gimmicked balsa wood guitar. Roberts believes Ferris accidentally grabbed a real, non-gimmicked guitar and smashed it over Roberts' back, injuring him and starting him on his dependence of prescription pain medication. However, in an interview for World Wrestling Insanity, the Honky Tonk Man disputes Roberts' assertion, saying that's not true, and in fact, I attribute most of that to Mick Foley, who wrote about it in his book, and Jake, who lied about it. During the see, this is the thing about Honky Tonk Man. If you go and watch some of his YouTube videos, there's things where he'll be asked questions about people he's worked with, and I'll be damned, there's not a whole lot of people in this business that he doesn't have something bad to say about. I mean, they're pretty rough. There is a classic one where him and Ric Flair on a live phone call. You can go to Honky Tonk Man's YouTube channel and find this. Ric Flair calls in, and apparently he's telling Honky Tonk Man that he owes him $40,000. And Ric Flair gets into all these things, you know, how he's broke, don't have the money, he's not buying the Rolexes anymore. And, you know, I thought that this is where Honky Tonk Man was on top of his game against who we consider probably one of the best talkers, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, Ric Flair, who was not at all on his game, probably because he was two sheets, you know, he's probably way drunk on this show. But moving on here. During the feud at WrestleMania 3, this actually led to a match between Jake the Snake and Honky Tonk Man at WrestleMania 3. Honky Tonk grabbed the ring ropes to score a tainted win, though. Afterward, Roberts cleared the ring of Honky before he and Alice Cooper attacked Hart with Roberts' Python Damien. And I do mean that as a real snake. Let's talk about the greatest intercontinental champion of all time. Again, Honky Tonk Man. On June 13th, 1987 episode of Superstars, Honky Tonk Man defeated Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for the WWF Intercontinental Championship. Honky reversed Steamboat's inside cradle and grabbed onto the bottom ropes for extra leverage to get the pin. Smart thinking. Honky was originally meant to be a transitional champion, but as Roberts was still suffering with the intermittent effects of the guitar shot several months earlier, Honky was booked to remain champion for what would be a record-setting run. To preserve his title, which could be taken by pinfall or submission, Honky often got himself deliberately counted out or disqualified against challengers such as Steamboat and Billy Jack Haynes, Bruno Sammartino, George Steele. Also during this time, Honky began using a 50s-style theme entrance song before performed by Ferris. And of course, it's on the Pile Driver album, the Wrestling album 2. I have every single album they've ever put out. I don't know why, I just but Pile Driver to me was between the first one and Pile Driver, that was the best two albums that the WWF ever put out. I loved the first one because it was commentated by Vince McMahon and Jesse Ventura and I believe Gene Okerlund also they did in between song commentary, which I thought was great. But this one they made videos for. I thought Pile Driver was unique because they made videos, but you know, Coke Could Be Beware, and of course Honky Tonk Man singing his song. Cool, Cocky, and Bad, you know, Honky Tonk Man. And I'm sure most of the wrestling fans are very familiar with that song. You know, it plays mean guitar, wear blue suede shoes, you ought to hear me sing the Snake Skin Blues. Of course, sometimes when he did that live, he would change the lyrics because he wrote that song in the time he was in a feud with Jake the Snake Roberts. This is why he added the Snake Skin Blues into that song. By September of 1987, Macho Man Randy Savage was in the midst of a face turn and began challenging Honky for the Intercontinental title, after Honky made comments about himself being the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, and disparaging comments about former champions, particularly Savage. Although they had several matches beforehand, they had also met in 1986 when then heel Savage was champion and challenged by the face Honky. The first Savage Honky match to air on national television was on October 3rd, 1987 edition of Saturday Night's Main Event, which was taped on September 23rd in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Chocolate capital of the world, baby. During that match, Savage nearly defeated Honky until Honky's allies, the Hart Foundation, got involved and got him disqualified. They ran into the ring and brutally attacked Savage, getting Honky disqualified, and Savage's manager, Miss Elizabeth, attempted to stop the carnage, but Honky shoved her down, which I thought at the time it was shocking. When we saw Honky Tonk Man shove Elizabeth to the ground, especially Elizabeth, because she was never an active wrestler, but he shoved her straight to the ground, and it was not an easy shove. And to me, that was shocking. They shoved her to the ground, and she fled to the locker room. Meanwhile, Honky completed his attempt to break his guitar over Savage's head. Shortly thereafter, Elizabeth returned with Savage's former rival, Hulk Hogan, who aided Savage in running off the heels, leading to the formation of the Mega Powers. Honky continued his bitter feud against Savage. Frequently, Honky would make advances toward Elizabeth, including one such incident in 1987 at the 1987 Slammy Awards, to agitate his challenger. Honky retained the title in matches with Savage and Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Honky's next major rival. During the Beefcake Honky feud, which began at WrestleMania 4 and continued during the spring and summer of 1988, Honky vowed not to let Beefcake cut his ducktail hair, something Beefcake often said he would do in promos in their matches. Honky was often seconded by a mysterious woman named Peggy Sue. While Sherry Martel sometimes played the role more often than not, Peggy Sue was Hart dressed in drag. Jimmy Hart dressed in drag. Beefcake countered with a woman of his own, Georgiana was still in drag. Which I don't remember that, but I would love to see that again. Honky and Beefcake were scheduled to square off at the 1988 SummerSlam in what was billed as Beefcake's last shot at the Intercontinental title. However, in a storyline twist, Beefcake was thrust in a feud with Outlaw Ron Bass after Bass committed a sneak attack on Beefcake. The incident was aired the weekend before SummerSlam. At the event, it was announced that a mysterious opponent would face Honky for the title. When it came time for the match, Honky proclaimed he did not care who his opponent was. And then who was his opponent? It was the Ultimate Warrior. Comes running out top speed, and he stuns his opponent, and in just 31 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, he captures the Intercontinental Championship from the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. Come on. The audience erupted with cheers and shouts of joy when the referee's hand came down for the third and final time for the count, thus ending Honky's reign and the beginning of the Ultimate Warrior. The Warrior, after winning the belt, mounted all four corners of the ring, holding the belt up high with both hands for all fans to see. It may have been the highlight of that card. Honky had been the champion for 1 year, 2 months, and 27 days, a record that still stands today. See, greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. Honky's bid to reclaim the title were unsuccessful, and he began moving down the card. Around the 1989-1991, Honky began a feud with the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, but came up short. His major push came in late 1989 and 1990 when he and Greg Valentine wrestled as the tag team Rhythm and Blues, competing against such teams as the Hart Foundation, the Legion of Doom. Rhythm and Blues were part of Ted DiBiase's $1 Million team, along with his mystery partner, the debuting Undertaker, to compete against Rhodes' dream team of the Hart Foundation and Kooka Beware at the 1990 Survivor Series. Honky wrapped up his WWF career with a stint as a pro-heel color commentator alongside Vince McMahon and Roddy Piper on Superstars before leaving in 1991. After that, of course, we see him do sporadic appearances on coming back to Raw, he mostly went back to independent. This is around the time when I met Honky Tonk Man, when he had left WWE. He was at WWF at the time. He went on the independent circuit. And if you go to our Facebook page and go through the pictures, you'll see a very young me, a very young me from almost 20 years ago when I got the opportunity to work with Honky Tonk Man, and he honored me by letting me get a picture with him. So that was really cool. Never got a guitar smashed over my head, not by the Honky Tonk Man, but I have had a guitar smashed over my head, so I know what it feels like. But between those times, he also returned to WWE. There was times when he was running with Billy Gunn, and they were doing the whole rockabilly gimmick. He did a one-time appearance at the 2001 Royal Rumble, but was quickly eliminated by Kane. In 2008, Santino Marella announced his intention to break Honky Tonk's record for the longest Intercontinental Championship reign, usually displaying a special honkometer, comparing Honky Tonk Man's 64-week run with the length of his own reign at the time. Never did accomplish it. He also appeared in World Championship Wrestling around 1994. Honky was working for World Championship Wrestling and was challenging Johnny B. Bad for the WCW World Television Championship when he left due to a dispute with management. In his book, Controversy Creates Cash by Eric Bischoff, he states that his favorite firing was that of the Honky Tonk Man. Honky has responded by saying that it was an honor, as Bischoff had fired a number of people while in WCW. After that, he really went back to the indie circuit from 2000 to today. He's been around all over the place. The most common place you can see him these days is probably on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel. You can look that up. Really good stuff. He does a lot of shoot interviews, people. And he's got a mouth on him. He opens up about everything. He will tell you what wrestlers were on drugs. He will tell you that Hulk Hogan was the stingiest person in the business. Yes, he was always on drugs, but Hulk Hogan would never share his drugs with anybody. In his personal life, if you didn't know it, Wayne Honky Tonk Man, Wayne Ferris, is a first cousin of professional wrestler Jerry the King Lawler, who Honky will also tell you he thinks is a piece of shit. Ferris is also an avid golfer in his spare time, and his first marriage was brief, and he has been married to his current wife, Tammy, since 1984. Ferris has a daughter named Megan and a son named Roy. Honky Tonk Man has had real-life feuds with members of the professional wrestling business, including Hulk Hogan, Dynamite Kid, Roddy Piper, Bret Hart, Ric Flair, Kevin Nash, Ted DiBiase, Eric Bischoff, Bubba the Love Sponge, Jake Roberts, Ricky Steamboat. Hey, fuck it, let's add Dusty Rhodes in there, Greg the Hammer Valentine. He seems to be really cool with Greg Steele, though, or George Steele. He seems to be really cool with George Steele. So, and I would be too. Ferris lives actually in Gilbert, Arizona, where he has lived since 1993. His finishing maneuver, he uses the shake, rattle, and roll, which is a swinging neck breaker with a little shaking. It's got a little theatrics with it, and a move he liked to call what was called El Kabong. And if you're familiar with the old cartoons, El Kabong, you realize that's when you get a guitar shot over the head. El Kabong! I love Honky Tonk Man. Yes, I admit, every man walks his own path, and he's a bit of a hardcore asshole out there. But even he still today makes me laugh. He can sit down. He will open up to you, man. He's very generous with sitting down and talking to you, as long as you don't disrespect him in any way. You just show the proper respect that he deserves. I mean, he is the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. I'll say it again. You need to respect that, because I respect that Intercontinental title. Not like the WWE does, but I respect it. They're trying to, but I love the guy. I thought he had a great gimmick. I thought his time in WWE was great. He had great feuds with Randy Savage. His monopolizing and kind of pushing Elizabeth down was cool. And I love the fact that he did all those guitar shots, because that was something new in WWE. You didn't see that very often. That was his thing. So, Elvis Personator gone bad, but gone good. And that's my report on the Honky Tonk Man, the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time.
You know what you have to say about Honky Tonk Man also, in addition to being a great Intercontinental Champion, is he was one of the relatively few heels who was a headliner in the WWF back during the Hulk Hogan era. And when he was Intercontinental Champion, he would work in the main event on house shows. Mm-hmm. And back then, and really nowadays too, but especially back then when Hulk Hogan was the top draw, the WWF was what they would call a babyface territory, where the heels generally wouldn't be the headliners. The babyfaces would be the headliners. But when Honky Tonk Man was the Intercontinental Champion, he was definitely the headliner, because he was the guy that you bought a ticket hoping that that would be the night that he lost that title. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, like, in NWA territories, they would book their territories like that all the time, but the WWF never really did that, at least not for a very long period of time. But when Honky was Intercontinental Champion, that was totally the draw. Was, oh, I hope tonight's the night that, you know, Steamboat finally wins that title back from Honky, or Macho Man finally beats Honky for that title, or Jake the Snake beats Honky for that title. Like, that was the draw. And Honky was a great draw as a heel Intercontinental Champion. And yeah, he is such an asshole on those shoot interviews. My favorite one of his is he's done a couple for kayfabe commentaries, and there was one really infamous one he did back in like 2006 or 2007 where he just shit on everybody for like the whole thing. And there was a question about Bret Hart, because apparently Bret Hart, in his book or in some other interview, Bret Hart complained that he didn't like to wrestle Honky Tonk Man because he thought Honky Tonk Man worked too loose.
Too loose. Yeah, he
hit too loose. Yeah, he hit too. And Honky said, and this was after Bret had had a stroke and was retired, and Honky said, "Well, let me ask you something, Bret. Would you rather work with me, someone like me, who's too soft and loose, or would you rather work with someone like Goldberg, who kicked your head off and gave you a stroke, and now you're sitting at home and the food falls out of your mouth and your dick don't get hard?"
Yeah, and he's like, he makes fun of him. But man, I'm telling you, he does not pull punches. That's not history. Not pull punches, and that's why I love him too, because he unveils. But I just got this interesting text from my wife, who works at Hot Topic. For any of you people who are interested in the WWE pop, I guess the pop toys or whatever they got, she showed me that they got Hulk Hogan on here. Oh, you can't really see it, but they got Hulk Hogan and then they got Daniel Bryan. I guess those are the two, and he's got a big old beard on him. So I guess I'll do a kind of a cheap plug here and say Hot Topic's got those pop vinyls in right now. Go over and check those things out. If you're into collecting pop vinyls, they just got a load of the WWE ones in.
There you go. But yeah, so speaking of Honky Tonk Man, why don't you tell us about your network recommendation this week, Doc?
Well, if you're going to recommend a show, why not recommend probably one of the greatest shows that ever was, the one that everybody kind of goes back to and says you cannot beat that card. And I'm talking about the one that happened. I can't even remember now. But let me go. I'm talking about WrestleMania 3, people. I was getting ready to say, where the hell did that happen? But it was a Silver Dome. Yeah. It was a Silver Dome in Toronto, Canada. So,
or Michigan.
Or yeah, Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan.
Same difference.
Yeah, whatever. The weather's the same.
But I picked this because, of course, it has that big main event, the Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant for the world title, and that was unprecedented for the time because you had Andre's undefeated streak against Hulk Hogan, who you couldn't take the belt off of. So he had held that belt for a long time. But also has the match we talked about in my report, the Honky Tonk Man versus Jake the Snake Roberts. So check that out. You also have Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage for the Intercontinental title, and it still goes down as one of the greatest matches of all time. But you got a 12-card show here, so it's definitely worth checking out. WrestleMania 3. That's my network recommendation, and I'm sticking to it.
And most wrestling fans have seen WrestleMania 3 multiple times, but it's still a great show. I mean, I've watched it just a couple weeks ago. Just if you're bored and it's like, what am I going to watch? And you don't even have to watch the whole thing. Just watch a little bit of it. But it's such a great show.
I just watched it for Little Beaver.
Yeah, and for Bob Uecker saying, "Man, looks like there's beaver all over this place." And Gorilla Monsoon not even touching it, just like, okay, anyway.
We're seeing a bold Adrian Adonis.
Yeah, yeah. Roddy Piper's supposed retirement match.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my recommendation is another show that was actually mentioned briefly in Doc's report on the Honky Tonk Man. I am recommending Survivor Series 1990. This is one of my favorite shows. This is a show that is noteworthy. Usually it's only mentioned for one of two reasons. It was the show that had the gobbledygooker come out of the big fucking egg, which everybody likes to talk about because it was one of the craziest, stupidest moments in the history of WWF. They have this big egg at all of the TV tapings, like for 2 months, and everybody's like, what's going to happen? What's going to come out of the egg? And it's fucking Hector Guerrero in a giant turkey costume. So that was one thing about Survivor Series 1990. The other one is that this is the WWF in-ring debut of The Undertaker. As Doc mentioned, he was the surprise partner of Ted DiBiase's Survivor Series team. And if you look at the original poster of the Survivor Series for 1990, it's still a mystery partner. Like if you look at the teams lined up, it's Ted DiBiase and Rhythm and Blues, and then like a blank question mark space because they hadn't announced who it was going to be. It was a mystery partner. And the mystery partner was The Undertaker, who went on to become one of the great superstars in the history of the company.
A ring general.
Yeah, and actually was such a success almost right away that a year later at Survivor Series 1991 he won his first world title. So he was a success right away.
He's on fire.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing I like about this show, other than the historical value of the Undertaker's first appearance, is they did a gimmick with it this year where the final match was a survivors match, where they divided it by heels and baby faces, and all of the surviving baby faces from the earlier matches would be on one team, and all of the surviving heels from the earlier matches would be on another team, and they would have like another match. And the survivors match this time, I think this was the only year they actually did this gimmick, which was a shame because I really thought it was a cool way to finish the show. It ended up being the Ultimate Warrior, who was the sole survivor of his match, Hulk Hogan, who was the sole survivor of his match, and I think Tito Santana had won his match. And it was the three of them versus, I think it was 3-on-4 maybe.
3-on-5.
Was it 3-on-5? Yeah, and it was DiBiase, and I forget who. You mentioned when you were hyping the indie show coming up that Typhoon Tugboat Shockmaster was going to be there. He's on this show too. He's on Hogan's team. He's on the Hulkamaniacs as Tugboat. But yeah, so they did the survivors match in the main event, and it wound up being Hogan and Ultimate Warrior being the survivors defeating the heel team, and they closed the show by celebrating in the ring together, which was kind of cool because Warrior was the champion at this point, and Hogan was the guy he had beaten for the title at WrestleMania, and they were sort of the top two baby faces of the company, and there they were as a team celebrating in the ring to end the show. I thought it was a really cool way to end the Survivor Series, and they've never done it since, but I wish they would bring that gimmick back, having a Survivors match, but they don't have as...
I can see how you kind of forgot like everybody that was on the heel team.
Yeah. Who all was it? I can't remember off the top of my head.
You had Ted DiBiase. He's noteworthy. You have Rick Martel, and he's definitely noteworthy. I'm going to be doing Rick Martel very soon as a legend because he deserves to be talked about. I am trying to hit people that aren't in the Hall of Fame, so at least. But you have Rick Martel, the Warlord.
There you go.
And Power and Glory, Hercules Paul Roma.
Yes, Power and Glory. There you go. Yeah. So I mean, I just think it was a cool gimmick to have the survivors of the earlier matches split off into two sides and have another match. I thought that was a cool gimmick. But yeah, so that was my recommendation, Survivor Series 1990. Check that out. Check out WrestleMania 3, Doc's recommendation, and make sure that you check out our Facebook page because Doc will reveal with his user pick choice very soon our Legend of the Week for next week.
Always within 24 hours, you know?
Always within 24 hours, yeah.
That's the doctor's rule.
Check back within 24 hours for next week's Legend. So anyway, that's it, everybody. We're on the road to Survivor Series. Next week is the last round of WWE TV before Survivor Series. So we'll have our predictions for the big show and run down where we're at as far as that goes. We'll have another Legend of the Week. So come back next week for more Wrestling with Wrestling. Thank you guys as always for joining us, and Doc, thank you as always for hosting with me. Always good to see you, and we'll see everybody next time.
Slap it, Pappy. Where?